Apple just made a huge announcement that might actually change everything. No, this is no longer Steve Jobs' Apple. Tim Cook has been making his own decisions and making some controversial announcements that Apple hopes will power the next generation of amazing Apple products that you've just gotta buy. I actually think after going back and watching through WWDC again, Apple dropped a lot of hints and clues as to what is coming next, including some big things that'll be coming to the iPhone 16. Let me break down what you need to know, break down Apple marketing speak, and tell you how the iPhone 16 is gonna get some good changes and some bad ones. Okay, so look, let me be honest here. I'm not here to tell you that moving apps around your iPhone home screen is a revolutionary new feature, or that being able to finally send a text message at a later date or time and get that scheduled took a lot of courage, as Phil Schiller would say. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm a huge Apple fan, don't get me wrong, I love what the company does, I'm addicted to their products, but a lot of times, most of what they do is just sort of marketing speak, looking to hype things up. And what I've loved to do on this channel for years and years is sort of give a little context, take a peek behind the curtain and behind the scenes and see what Apple is planning to do next. And especially since Tim Cook has taken the helm a few years ago, well, he's taken the helm a long time ago, but really over the last few years, he's made a lot of big decisions that has changed Apple's course and what their priorities are. For example, he made a lot of big bets on streaming and services. There was TV Plus, there was Apple Music, News. Whoever thought that Apple was gonna make their own credit card? There was the move over to Apple Silicon, away from Intel, betting on themselves, and that turned out to be a really big bet. There was this doubling down on privacy, safety, and security, and now the latest sort of move Apple is making, their big priority, is this new thing called Apple Intelligence. Don't call it AI, not artificial intelligence. This is Apple here, so AI is Apple Intelligence. And I'm not gonna make a whole video telling you what Apple Intelligence is and what it does because, well, quite frankly, I don't think anybody wants that. We don't really know what it does quite yet. And also, this is like Apple's first big problem. It's hard to explain exactly what this is. It's like if I was to ask you, for example, to explain to your grandma or your parents, your best friend, what AI was and what large language models are. You sort of like know it in your head if you've used it, but it's really hard to explain. I feel like this is a similar issue Apple's currently having with Vision Pro. It's this super fancy schmancy $3,500 headset. We've seen all the promo videos, but to try to explain to someone what it does and how you use it and what you see, it's hard to do. And that's one of the issues with Apple Intelligence. It's sort of this very broad term for a bunch of new features and capabilities built in across the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac. It's impressive, don't get me wrong, and hopefully it lives up to the hype of those demos, but to try to explain what it is a little tough, but hopefully that'll get easier over time. Long story short, Apple Intelligence is basically Apple's new AI framework to do a bunch of different things. You've got the revamped Siri, you've got new writing tools, you've got image creation stuff. There's a lot this stuff can do, and it's really cool, but you might have blinked and missed one of the very important disclaimers here that I think is really gonna set the tone moving forward, and that is what devices Apple Intelligence is going to work on. For the Mac, it's an M1 or higher. That's not a huge deal. But on the iPhone, at least in beta form, only available on iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. And I'm hoping that maybe this changes moving forward once it's out of beta and maybe there's a more limited feature set for non-Pro phones. But what this tells me right now is that if it only works right now on the 15 Pro series, I bet that if you really want to use Apple Intelligence, you're gonna have to, of course, buy one of the iPhone 16 phones because Apple's gonna give the best experience to all the new iPhones moving forward. And based off of all the leaks and rumors and everything we know about the iPhone 16 right now, this does sort of make sense. There's not gonna be a huge physical change here to the 16 lineup. Yeah, there'll be some minor things, some new buttons, some camera upgrades, some larger Pro models, but overall, Apple really needs a selling point to get people to upgrade from their current phone to the new phone, and it seems like what that big thing is gonna be is Apple Intelligence. Now, maybe I'm wrong on this, maybe there is a more watered down experience on other phones, maybe if you've got a 15 Pro or above it's gonna work, but I'm sure they're gonna go all out with some really fancy promo videos to show just how great this is, but only on the iPhone 16 lineup. Classic Apple move, I can totally see this. And if this sort of sounds familiar to you, like we've heard this thing before, that's because we have. Now drop a comment down below and let me know if you remember this controversy, but back in 2011, with the actual introduction of the original Siri on the iPhone 4S, there was a lot of speculation as to why Siri was only on the 4S. Now granted, the 4S did have I believe a faster processor and some other under the hood tweaks, but many believe that there was no technical reason Siri couldn't run on the iPhone 4. And beyond that, I'm super curious to see what Apple Intelligence features the iPhone 16 Pro phones will have. We had heard some rumors that some special features would be reserved just for the Pros, so I'm curious to see what that would be. And also, now given what this stuff can do, I wonder if that rumored capture button, which we thought all along was sort of this pressure-sensitive physical button that was going to be used for the camera, is actually going to be used in some sense for Apple Intelligence. Maybe it's one of those multimodal things where you've got your iPhone, you're able to press that capture button, and then your iPhone is able to sort of see the world around you, and then you can ask Siri or whatever assistant you can have access to, maybe even ChatGPT or whatever, questions about the real world, like, hey, what microphone is this? Or what camera is this? Or tell me how much this light stand is. I wonder if that capture button is a way for Siri to capture the world around you. Given all the hype around this stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if a dedicated button on the phone made sense, because it kind of does. I guess you could argue the action button could kind of do something similar, but leave it to Apple to make a brand new button for this. Not saying it's for sure gonna happen, but just an idea after going back and watching that keynote a couple of times. Also, given how much Apple really praises spatial video recording on the iPhone, I'm now 99% sure that the real main reason Apple is going to a vertical layout for iPhone 16 and 16 Plus is just to say that spatial video recording can now be done on those phones. Though I'll say from my personal experience that when testing Vision Pro, the videos I captured in spatial format on my iPhone were okay, but as dorky as it looks to wear the headset, the videos you're able to capture are way better and way more immersive with that setup than on the iPhone. Maybe Apple changes that with the iPhone 16 series, but I mean, you can do spatial video on here, but I don't think it's all that worth it. But I'm sure with iPhone 16 and 16 Plus, they're making that camera change to say spatial video is now possible. Also, a few other things we should talk about here from WWDC. Speaking of Vision Pro, I mean, Vision OS 2.0 is nice to see, but again, the hardware is really the problem here. $3,500 is a lot of money to spend. It's hard to justify it. It's hard to say what you can do. I think the die-hard users and those who own this are going to enjoy the updates here, gesture support and bringing in the keyboard and ultra-wide Mac display. That's great, but I don't think anyone who's sitting on the sidelines is convinced by this update to go out and spend $4,000 and buy this headset. I had one, I returned it, I really don't miss it, and Vision OS 2 looks cool, but doesn't convince me to run out of the Apple Store and buy another one again. It's kind of a similar story for the iPad as well, as iPadOS, in my opinion, continues to disappoint every single year. I truly do not understand why the iPad has such good hardware. I think making a larger version of the iPad Air, genius move. iPad Pro with OLED display, fantastic. Why is there an M4 in there though? What part of the software beyond a couple of niche apps is really taking advantage of all that power? Is Apple Intelligence in there going to really transform this thing? Because iPadOS was a pretty lackluster update, and yet again, I just feel like iPad Pro hardware is too good and hamstringed by lackluster software. Beyond that, definitely interesting to note that hardware took a bit of a back seat here at WWDC. No Mac hardware updates here, obviously no new iPhones, and it seems like as Apple Intelligence is sort of stealing the spotlight right now, that's probably what has been taking a lot of the resources behind the scenes. So maybe this is the reason why things like a new Mac Studio or more Apple Silicon upgrades or Apple Studio displays, AirPods Max 2, why those might have been shuffled to later timelines. We should still be getting some stuff before the end of the year, still looking at AirPods Max 2, iPhone 16 obviously, Apple Watch upgrades and stuff, but it seems like a lot of the major Apple hardware, especially that can probably better take advantage of Apple Intelligence, is on the schedule for next year, as it probably took a lot of resources last minute to get this stuff done and ready to ship, but at least it's finally here. So I'm curious though, now that you've had a couple of days to digest this and think about it, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Apple Intelligence is worth the hype? Do you think it's going to be great? Are you excited to try it out? Or do you think it's going to be too little too late and Apple's just playing catch up? How do you think this changes Apple moving forward? Do you think this is sort of Tim Cook blazing a new path for Apple? Or do you think it's sort of a side quest gone wrong? Let me know your thoughts down below. As always, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching these videos. I appreciate you all. I'm Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle, and I'll see you all in the next one.